Hey gang, Sally here. Hope you're having an amazing and fascinating day. I know I am. Kit's behind me, he may pop out at some point. We are here to talk about proposed fee increases. We're going to talk math. We're going to talk about what's going on. This has been showing up on the internet from a bunch of different nomads and YouTubers, and basically what's going on is the BLM is proposing to increase fees, which will affect the Yuma Field Office area, long-term visitor area. We are in an open comment period now. So I'm going to give you some of my comments, and I'm going to encourage you to get in touch with the BLM and make comments of your own. And I'll have all the info about how to do that in the description down below. Before we get to that part, as always, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and roll the intro and get right into it. Okay, so I got a bunch of notes that I've made, and I'm going to be quoting directly from the draft proposal from the BLM. But before we talk about the draft proposal, let's talk about LTVAs first, right? What is an LTVA? Well, LTVA stands for Long-Term Visitor Area. And currently, the way that that program works is there are 7 different sites located in Arizona and in California that you are entitled to use based on having purchased a pass for either a short-term use or long-term use. And those sites include La Posa North, La Posa South, La Posa West, and Tyson Wash in Quartzsite area. That comprises 11.4 thousand acres. It also includes Imperial Dam down near Yuma, but it's actually in California, guys, and that's kind of an important point too. It also includes Pilot Knob, which is in California, Holtville, well, Hot Springs, which is near Holtville, California, the Midland LTVA area, also in California, and Mule Mountain and Tamarisk, also in California. So the only LTVA sites that are within Arizona are indeed La Posa, outside of Quartzsite. But the proposed fee structure change affects all 4 of the La Posa sites and Imperial Dam, which, as I said, is actually in California, but it's being managed by the BLM Yuma Field Office. And so those are the only sites that will be included in the proposed fee increases if this actually goes through. So what do you get when you go to an LTVA site? Well, it depends on which site you go to, actually, because they all have some different amenities. And one of the things to consider is, you know, most people think that Imperial and La Posa have the greatest number of amenities. They have dump stations, they have potable water, although how potable it is in La Posa is a little bit questionable in my mind. It's very salty in that area. And it's not filtered, it's just straight well water. So pretty salty water. They have trash service, and they've got, in La Posa, they've got one main semi-paved road and a bunch of dirt roads in varying states of usability that spur off of that into their 11.4 thousand acres of desert. They claim that they've got ramadas. I haven't ever seen any ramadas other than the big pavilion ramada that's got a concrete floor. I've been to a party there before, which is fun, but you know, that's not like ramadas at each camping location or anything like that. So, by most people's standards, the amenities are pretty sparse. And then in other areas, they're completely different. Pilot Knob, for example, does not have a dump station. They don't have potable water. All they have is trash service. Holtville does not have a dump station. I can't remember if they've got water or not, but they do have trash service. So same kind of thing. Each site has different amenities. Amenities meaning different things to different people, of course. So if you want to use an LTVA site, you can do it for 2 different periods currently. You can buy a pass that will allow you to camp on any of those LTVA sites or all of them that I've just mentioned anytime between September 15th and April 15th. And currently, the fee to do that is $180 for that entire 7-month period. Or if you're not planning to be there for that long, you can get a short-term permit, which is good for 40 days and currently costs $40. Now, that's a pretty big bargain. It really is, no doubt about it. And I guess before I tell you what the fee increases are, let's talk about, do we need fee increases? Yeah, we need fee increases. We definitely do. There's no doubt about it. They haven't increased fees since 2008. Like everybody else, they're struggling to be able to maintain the amenities that they have. Um, and they definitely need to increase fees. But here's their proposal. They want to increase the long-term pass from $180 to $600. That's more than triple. Now, has your salary tripled, or has your Social Security, or has your retirement income, or whatever, tripled anytime recently? I don't think so. And we're going to talk about more. We're going to talk more about that when we get toward the end. The short-term permit, they want to increase from $40 to $200. Now, that sounds really bad, but they are proposing another change, which is to increase the permit from 14 days to 30 days. So instead of $40 for 14 days, they're proposing $200 for 30 days. But again, that's would have been $80. So basically they're increasing from $80 to $200. That's a huge increase. And keep in mind, if this increase goes into effect, this is only going to allow you to camp at La Posa near Quartzsite or Imperial Dam near Yuma. Again, it's still in California. Um, And that also means that all of those other sites, like Pilot Knob and Holtville and Midland and Mule Mountain and Tamarisk, if you want to go camp there, you're still going to have to go buy another pass, which is currently $180 for a long-term pass and $40 for a short-term pass. So if you're buying a long-term pass and you want to be able to bounce around in all those areas, with the proposed fee increase, it's not $600, it's actually $780. Unless and until California decides they're going to jack their rates up too for the other sites. Nobody knows anything about that yet. But it seems to me that there are a few things around this that really bear coming to light, some of which hasn't really been talked about amongst the YouTubers. And one of them is the fact that this only is going to give you a permit for La Posa near Quartzsite and Imperial Dam near Yuma. And I think that's super important. I've got the draft proposal up on the screen in front of me, so I'm going to use my glasses and read you some stuff too. So it'll go into effect starting September 1st, 2025. And they are reiterating that it does not apply to the California LTVAs and vice versa, which also is kind of a misnomer because, as I said, Imperial Dam is located in California, even though it's administered by the Yuma Field Office. Anyway, I digress. But there's another piece of this. So they are proposing a process to adopt a model to increase fees by 20% whenever the consumer price index rises by 20%. And so that says to me that, rises by 20% in what period of time? From the time that they last had a price increase? So it could be, heaven help us, weeks. Seems unlikely. Could be years. So it could be that they're setting themselves up to do exactly the same thing they're proposing to do now, which is not to have had a price increase since 2008 and try and make up for it all at once, which doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. The BLM says that current combined program funding levels only meet 60 to 63% of the obligations associated with the program. Yes, they need a price increase, but tripling the cost for a long-term pass doesn't really seem to make good sense to me. Impacts if the plan is not approved include potential adjustments to the LTVAs to manage visitor numbers and amenities and services within the existing budget. What's that mean? It means they're going to sell fewer passes potentially, or not increase the number of passes, or whatever. They're going to manage the number of people that are allowed to go park there is what it's really going to come down to. They did some market research and identified similar fees for boondocking or dry camping locations within the Southwest region charge anywhere from $15 to $25 per night, which is $750 per month, and require reservations often having to be made in advance. Really, guys? Yeah, that's not really a fair characterization. For one thing, most boondocking locations won't allow you to stay for a month. Just saying. Let's just start there. The ease and accessibility of visits to the LTVA, coupled with the abundance of amenities, and again, let's talk about that. Theoretically potable water that's really pretty salty and doesn't taste good. That's what they give you. And that's fine. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just, let's characterize the amenities appropriately. Um, Kind of antiquated dump stations, but there are 2 dump stations at La Posa South and dumpsters that are often overflowing. That's really what they provide. Now, are there roads? Yes, there is one semi-paved road. I think it's chip seal, and the rest are all dirt roads. But yes, there is maintenance involved in providing those roadways. But I also think it's a little bit like the Santa Fe Trail. People driving over them are going to make roads. And I haven't ever seen anybody out there actually maintaining the roads in the LTVA, at least during the season, September to April. So, and a lot of people want to know, well, I've got an America the Beautiful pass. Why do I have to pay this fee? Because it does not fall within the fee structure that covers the interagency fees. There's a whole lot of, CFR codes and stuff around that. Just trust me, you got to pay. It's just the way it works. Um, Here's something that really kind of concerns me in great extent, and part of why they are trying to justify this price increase is they are identifying, and this is their word. So they're identifying a subculture variant of the RV culture. And they're talking about people who are moving into smaller style conversion vehicles such as retrofitted vans, buses, and passenger cars with less built-in amenities than normal RVs have. These new variant visitors create additional challenges for site management as well as balancing visitor conflicts. Based on the growing popularity of this movement and others, the Yuma Field Office anticipates a minimum 5% per season growth for these types of visitors. This increase in visitor numbers has consequently caused a shortfall in current BLM service contracts for potable water treatment, sewage removal and processing, as well as trash collection. Well, as I said, I'm used to seeing overflowing dumpsters there. Doesn't really seem that that should be as big an issue as it is, but it is. So they have also split out to the best of their ability the top 10 states in Canada from which long-term visitor area visitors come from. And interestingly, by far, their biggest state is Arizona with 16.3% long-term permits and 14.7% short-term permits, followed by South Dakota, California, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Idaho, Nevada, Colorado, Florida, Canada, and then other locations, which make up a total of the other locations, make up 30%. Um, Almost 7% come from Canada, not a big surprise there. I mentioned the tie into further price increases to the CPU, a CPI, Consumer Price Index. So let's think about that for a moment. The first adjustment would result in an increase to long-term LTVA permits to $720 and short-term permits to $240. That's a lot of money, guys. In their whole draft proposal, they list all the costs associated with the stuff that they're doing, um, and the staffing and so forth. And yes, they're spending more money than they're bringing in. Oops. But here's part of the flaw in or flaw or fly in the ointment, depending on how you look at it. And let me just flip back over here to my notes real quick. Yeah, so they've got some flawed revenue thinking in my estimation, at least. So part of it is that they are basing their revenue increases for the proposed increase based on the same number of passes being sold as before the price increase. And the true reality is that that's probably not going to happen. There will be some people who just decide they're not going to pay that much, and there'll be other people that decide they can't pay that much. But what I see happening is that instead of buying a long-term visitor pass for the LTVA, people will just, commit to moving every 14 days and they'll go to the free areas instead. And, you have to move a certain distance every 14 days and you got to move every 14 days. But for some people, that may be the only alternative that they have, which would be much less expensive than, $600 for an LTVA pass. So they're projecting their short-term pass revenue. That's the one that they want to turn into 30 days now. They're uh, they're projecting for fiscal year 2025, $1,134,800. But that's based on selling the same number of passes as in fiscal year 2024, which was 5,674 passes. All right, stay with me here. We're doing math, guys. So in 2024, those 5,674 passes generated $226,960. So it's the number of passes sold times $40 per pass for a 2-week period. Okay. But the proposed short-term pass is going to be good for 30 days. So it seems likely to me that even if the same number of people purchase short-term passes, they're only going to sell half the number of passes. So instead of 5,674, it's more likely going to be on the order of 2,837. So 2,837 new passes sold at $200 is going to be a projected revenue of $567,400, not $1,000,001. So that's, half of what they're projecting right there. That's pretty flawed thinking in my mind. And I double checked their math. That's exactly the way that they calculated it. So that makes no sense to me at all. Now, another thing that I found really interesting is that they've got in table 11, they're talking about income increases from 2016 to 2022. And they show it based on state. And what they're showing is that for that time period, the highest income increase annually shown for those states that they're checking is 17% for residents in California, Washington, and Oregon. Now we know that all three of those are pretty expensive states, right? Residents of La Paz County, where Quartzsite is located, have only seen a 5% income increase during that period. Income hasn't tripled for anybody. So how on earth are they justifying tripling the fees that they're proposing? Um, so what they're also showing is that in table 11, they're showing the average U.S. income across the country has increased 11.1% during the 2016 to 2022 period. An equivalent fee increase would amount to $88.88 for a short-term pass, and that includes increasing the period to 30 days, right? Okay. And an increase to $199.98 for the long-term pass. If you take the current $180, add 11.1% to it, basically you're at $200. I don't think anybody would squawk at a $200, price instead of 180. I don't think anybody would really squawk at 225 or possibly even 250. But more than tripling the existing cost because of their failure to do so previously is not serving the public that they're supposed to be serving, at least in my opinion. But the proposed fee increases affect much more than just the LTVAs. When you go to the BLM website and look at this, and I'm not going to name all of the other affected sites, but there are several that I like to frequent. So if you like camping in BLM sites in Arizona, be aware that a number of sites that are currently free are going to become fee-based. Now, their converse argument to that is that there are several that are fee-based that they're thinking about turning into free sites, but that doesn't really offset what they're proposing. They are proposing putting in a new campground near Fortuna Pond. Fortuna Pond has its own set of issues that have been going on for several years now. Whole different story. So if you like other sites around Arizona, be sure you check that out as well. And I guess in conclusion, I'll say this feels a bit like the BLM land is taking a cue from New Mexico State Park's proposed fee increases, where, oh, wait a minute, the numbers look really similar, don't they? They were going from $180 for an annual pass to $600. And oh, by the way, the last time I looked at the New Mexico State Parks website, they have not actually said anything further about that fee increase. Hopefully, they got enough pushback that they're going to do something a little bit more moderate moving forward. Sure hope so. Part of the issue that we have is that there are so many people that are doing the best they can living on a significantly reduced budget as compared to many other people, that for them, this kind of a fee increase just prices them out of the market. And that may be difficult for some people to understand, but there are two different spectrums of users. Actually, well, there are two different extremes of users of boondocking sites. And some of those are the people with lots of money that are snowbirds and they've got their great big Class A's and they don't really care what they're spending. They just want to get out of the cold winter weather and come down to Arizona and enjoy the amenities, go to the big tent, all of that stuff. At the other end of the spectrum, you have people that are in, somewhat dire circumstances and they may not even be able to afford, because they're on really limited social security or disability or whatever, they may not even be able to afford, if they wanted to have a small apartment in a conventional kind of lifestyle. And instead, many of those people are living in their cars. Now, whether you think that's a great thing or not a great thing, doesn't matter. Those are the two extremes, right? I think the vast majority of us fall somewhere in the middle when it comes to using these kinds of sites and so forth. But I think it's important to recognize what an impact it may have on people that may not have a choice anymore. So I think that's really an important thing to keep in mind. As always, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate you spending time watching my videos. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Really helps to give us a comment, leave a like, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.